our Thought Leaders Roundtable for January. We're really delighted to have you here to talk about a very important topic in the TA solutions industry, and that is consolidation. Consolidation of TA solution providers. Now, we're not talking about consolidation of tools, although that obviously happens when we have a consolidation among TA solution providers. But when there is consolidation, mergers and acquisitions, you also can see an effort to achieve market dominance. You can see an effort to remove competitors. And in today's space, with the scarcity of AI skills, you can even see mergers and acquisitions for the acquisition of talent. So there are a lot of facets to consolidation in the industry. And I'm very pleased to have four of the smartest people in our space join me to explore just what it means. Is it good, bad, or unimportant for those of us working in the talent acquisition business? So if Cindy Songne from Joveo, Hilary Dionne from JobCase, John Wilson from WilsonHR, and Tim Dineen from Aspen Tech Labs will please join me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm going to ask each of you all to introduce yourself. Maybe we'll just move around the matrix here, starting at the top. Tim, would you please introduce yourself and Aspen Tech Labs?
Sure. So I've been in the space about 20 years now. Starting with Indeed, I was an early employee over there back in 2007. A few years later, I left and co-founded RecruitX, which became the first programmatic in our space. After about 16 years there, I just recently, just this past year, left there and joined Aspen Tech Labs. So Aspen Tech is a data business involved in scraping jobs from corporate career sites, making that job data available in many forms, either raw data or business intelligence.
Great, thank you. Hilary.
Thanks. Yes. So I'm the SVP of Marketing and Member Operations at JobCase. I've been in the industry a little over 12 years. And so JobCase, I think many of you may have heard us referred to as the LinkedIn for blue-collar workers. You know, we're a social platform dedicating to empowering the world's workers. However, in the last few years, we've just completed a transformation to really being an agentic AI-first company. We realized when ChatGPT launched that we needed to get on board or get left behind. And, so our whole company has taken prompt engineering training. We recently launched an agentic AI talent recruiter that, can do anything from outreach to scheduling. And so, helping not only save HR team time and dollars, but also really starting to improve that candidate black hole experience of being able to actually get back to them about their applications. So really excited to be here and part of the conversation today.
So John, how about you?
So I've been in the space 23 years. Founded WilsonHR, which was Wilson HCG before, in 2002. And this topic is extremely interesting to me because we've done 7 acquisitions, I believe, over the 20 plus years, some good, some bad, and some have become unimportant. So I'm excited about the topic and definitely have some experience with it. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Cindy.
John, I didn't realize that you've had so many acquisitions. I can't wait to hear about them. I am Cindy Songne. I am with Joveo. I have been in this space way too long to mention. Let's just say since college, I've been a practitioner. I've been on the solution provider side, agency side. My focus at Joveo is all ad agency. At one time, Tim was my client. I've worked with both John's company and Hilary's company as well. Joveo is an AI-powered recruitment marketing platform. We do everything from started out as programmatic, and we've just blossomed from there. It's an end-to-end solution, and again, all powered by agentic AI. So I'm happy to be here today.
Great. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't also add that TAtech itself has gone through a transformation and is now as you can see at the top of your screen, the Network for Talent Technology Solutions. And what that means is that the kind of benefits that we have typically provided at our two major market conferences, TAtech North America and TAtech Europe, those benefits are now available year-round through a virtual platform. So people come to TAtech conferences for partnering discussions, for product and company branding, and for the kinds of discussions that we're going to have here today. And all of those things are now available at our resource hub, tatech.org. Okay, let's talk about the topic du jour. Last year, there were some major acquisitions in our space, right? We heard about SmartRecruiters. We heard about Paradox being acquired by HR tech solution providers. We heard about the monster CareerBuilder complex and JobAdX being bought by other TA solutions providers. So first, let's talk about whether this is just sort of normal M&A activity in our industry. As John has mentioned, it goes on all the time. Or is it something different? Is this the leading edge of a wave of consolidation in the TA solutions industry? What do you guys think?
So,
go ahead, Tim.
Who's going first?
I think
Tim,
personally, I think it's not enough. I'd love to see a lot more of it happening. Just a couple big companies being acquired by a couple other big companies. There's a lot of companies in this space. A lot of them do the same thing, and I'd love to see more of it. Whether it's roll-ups, I'd rather see like some unique companies joining together rather than two similar companies joining together, just because it makes sense financially, maybe for revenue, but. I think a couple last year is probably the tip of the iceberg. At least that's what I hope.
Hilary, your thoughts? Oh, go ahead, John, please.
I'm sorry, Hilary. I was going to say I agree, and this has happened in a market where money's really expensive. And as we get to a point where interest rates decline and it's easier to access capital, I think the acquisition market or M&A market will heat up further than it already has. And I do believe there's a need for roll-ups, especially in the solution provider space.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I mean, I think it's really, there's always going to be M&A happening in this industry, but I think it's, why is it happening now? And what's going to happen this year is it should accelerate. I think the combination of a lot of the job board space is really commoditized. To Tim's point, there's a lot of similar companies out there. And then what companies are doing and can do with AI, I think they'll want to be owning a lot more of the full workflow too. I think will be some interesting moves by potentially bigger players who can scoop up some newer companies trying to solve problems in different ways with AI.
I think what made last year's big was the big names, and they're names that we had never thought about before, either acquiring or being acquired, even though we know that everything could happen. I agree with Tim that I think we're just getting started, but I don't believe we're going to see a landslide of it. I agree with John in the fact that I would like to see some like companies. I think you said, John, you'd like to see like companies emerge together and be more powerful, which, and many times I speak from the agency side, that's where I'm speaking today. I know that a couple of them, if they were to get together, they could be tremendous. There are other ones, there are some larger agencies that have done spin-offs or tried to get into space where they're really, they shouldn't focus in that space, in my opinion. And in that case, they should buy. Or merge with somebody else. But I think the biggest thing with consolidation is not just the idea of doing it, but doing it effectively and making sure that the execution is there.
So I guess the consensus is that we are perhaps at the leading edge of a maybe not a wave, but certainly an increase in M&A activity in the space, particularly as money gets a little less expensive. But what other dynamics are at play here that might be accelerating this trend? I'll throw one out. I think the SmartRecruiters and Paradox acquisition are illustrative of the fact that HR tech vendors have a dilemma. And that is that employers have finally realized that you can't manage the human resources you don't have, which means that having a mediocre talent acquisition module in your end-to-end HR suite isn't sufficient anymore to be competitive, that you need a best of breed, if you will, a best of breed solution at the front end of your HR technology in order to survive in the marketplace. So I think one of the things that will accelerate this trend is that HR tech vendors, which are in many cases cash rich, are going to be shopping in the marketplace for more talent acquisition solution providers. But that's just one dynamic. What do you all think? John?
Yeah, I agree. I think the things I've heard that I think are very interesting when it comes to M&A, especially when adding to a platform, is where AI is today versus where it was a year ago, and then where it's going to be in the future. And so I've heard apprehension about doing an acquisition now because they don't know will they need it in 6 months or a year. When I look at some of the acquisitions that are taking place, it's definitely filling a gap, and instead of necessarily looking towards the future. And I think as the start to come to market, that question needs to be asked. What gap does this fill, and is this making me better for the future?
Well, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the corollary to that is that a lot of companies need AI skills, whether they're looking to acquire an AI first vendor or not. Whether you like it or not, and certainly Meta and Google have been guilty of it. One of the dynamics driving this trend is simply the hunt for talent. You buy a company to get the talent on board in the AI space. So that's certainly another dynamic. But then you also have employers, right? I mean, are employers asking for fewer solution providers? They're under pressure from their purchasing department, if you will, and plus they've got to manage this ever more complicated tech stack. So isn't there some push on the part of employers to see some consolidation as well? What do you think?
I think that's true, because I'm hearing it from my agencies, and they don't want to log into a bunch of different products, bunch of different systems to see different types of data. But I think where we have to be, or the purchasers have to be careful, is that they don't end up with the Frankenstein of a system. And I think that's very critical, and that's where I go back to the execution of it. It can't be clunky. It has to, and that may go to a build or a buy, but I think that is a critical piece. And sometimes it is the mergers, the acquisitions, whatever, are quick to market, and other times it may take a year before they come out. And then the other thing you have to be careful there is, can you tell I feel strongly about this? The other thing you have to be careful about is keeping the service teams, because that's critical. And many times an employer will stay with a partner, I don't like the word vendor, because of that service that they get from their team, the customer success team.
Yeah. And just going back to something, I'm sorry, going back to something you said, Peter, just about the push to acquire and acquihire essentially for the AI talent. I think there's that. There's also pressure from boards and leadership to be using AI, and whether that's profitable and being done in the right way or not. Like sometimes bigger, slower companies might feel the pressure to adopt and not know how. So the idea of acquiring, an AI first company to kind of get ahead and then have that, kind of, under their belt or on their site to be able to say, yeah, this is how we're using AI. And this is, I think, really an opportunity where sometimes the smaller companies are going to be able to move faster from that perspective and be really ripe targets.
Yeah, one thing I think another side of what we're going to see this year is, and we have seen the last couple of years, is that we're in a candidate-driven market, supply heavy market for the first time in quite a while, and that could be overwhelming to some of these platforms or the people using them. There's also the fact that many HR or TA staffs are reduced in size, so they're dealing with an influx of candidates with fewer people to help manage them. So if the tools they're using, the ATSs or even the job boards, aren't keeping up with helping them juggle all of what they have to do, then they're going to be looking for elsewhere. So if a platform or a software isn't making the cut, they're going to need to either evolve or acquire or merge in order to really satisfy their customers' needs.
I think we're in a very unforgiving marketplace, Tim. I think your point is spot on, and the need for evolution it is accelerating. You've got to react to the market much more quickly than you have historically. And that also brings to fore the point that Cindy made. It's hard enough to get an acquisition right financially. John, you mentioned that. But getting it right organizationally and culturally, is at least half the problem. Years ago, I was a partner in the Hay Group, which specialized in compensation and benefits. And we were acquired by Saatchi & Saatchi, a British advertising company. And that was like oil and water, trying to mix those two cultures. It is important. Mergers and acquisitions will obviously be an important dynamic in growing businesses, but they only work if they are successfully implemented.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about this trend for 2026. We've talked about the fact that we're probably at the leading edge of a increase. Do you think that we're going to see more participation, more activity in the year, or do you think that right now, at least given where the economy is, are things going to just sort of stabilize and stay where they are for 2026?
I think there's a lot of people going, hey, I'm up for sale if you want to buy me. I think there's a lot of that going on in the background. And I think it's only going to increase this year. I don't think people are going to shy away from it.
Yeah. I think too, even just like the number of bids for CareerBuilder, for example, I think there are a lot of people who are looking to buy, and you'd be surprised if that's changed in the short amount of time since that's happened.
Yeah. I think that's right. So obviously, consolidation on the one hand is great for the seller. It's a wonderful exit strategy, assuming you get a good deal. It's good for the PE companies that have invested in some of these companies. Who else benefits when companies get acquired, when this consolidation happens? Do employers benefit? Do the consultants and lawyers benefit? I mean, who's on the top side of these kinds of deals?
The lawyers and consultants definitely benefit. But I do think that anytime you're having two different ways of thinking or two sides of creativity get together, the chances are that you're going to have something a little bit better that the end user absolutely benefits from.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Given that the execution is there.
Yeah,
the execution has to be there, because you can get reach, you can get the new technology, but unless it's done correctly, it could be a mistake.
Yeah, but I do think there's the point around the job seeker experience and how consolidation can really help there. Can this be the year that everyone hears back about their job application? And maybe that's a challenge for those listening in. But it's been like a decade since we've talked about that problem, and shouldn't AI be able to help solve it? And the consolidation should support that, and people not having to jump around from job site to job site and be confused and deal with scam jobs and everything that kind of plagues the member experience there. I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity for consolidation to benefit people.
Overall, I think consolidation would also be great for job seekers, for employers trying to buy and spread their budget around when posting jobs, things like that. But overall, like I said earlier, collaboration and combination of different types of companies really should is what I'm looking forward to. Like I said, that can drive innovation just by combination, and so some consolidation of like companies would be good to see on behalf of employers trying to spread their budget. But in order, the market needs to evolve to the current times, and seeing some businesses that do similar but different things in a different way, and combining the minds of the people that have put those companies together would be what I'd look forward to.
Well, I think.
Go ahead, John, please.
I was just going to say, I think to Hilary's point, for so long, all the money that was coming into the TA space was around attraction or back-end systems. And now we're at a point where, as Tim mentioned, it's a candidate rich market, that more of those companies, as the market has shifted, does more private money go into how do you screen, select, and communicate to make sure that candidates are having a good experience. And I always go back to, it's still at the end of the day, many of the Fortune 500 are consumer brands, and how does it affect their consumer base when they don't respond to a candidate? So I think there's a big opportunity for organizations to get that right, from a tech standpoint, and truly just being a human being.
Right.
Well, of course, as we've hinted at earlier, this is a very fragmented marketplace. So we have a long ways to go before consolidation would really have a significant impact on the number of players. But that said, one of the knocks on consolidation is that it limits competition. And when you limit competition, almost inevitably prices go up. So do you think that, from our perspective as a industry of talent acquisition products, consolidation is a good thing because it's likely to help stabilize and maybe even potentially increase our ability to see higher prices? What do you think?
I mean, I can definitely see that side. When you think about, we've essentially been buying job slots like advertisers, like programmatic, right? Like advertisers buy media, and what's happened with Google and Meta, for example, and the consolidation there, it's much more black box for the people who are advertising and spending their budgets. So I think the consolidation could be a negative for job boards that are still around, and for employers or agencies if some of the controls are taken away from them and they potentially see less ROI, whether it's higher prices or just they're not able to buy in the way they want to, or the way they had been in the past, to try to attract candidates and hire.
The reality is the competition is kind of limited now. If we look at where people are posting jobs and spending their budget, there are two big players. So I'm always in favor of at least three. But we've got 60 now, like including a lot of programmatics or smaller sites that gain job seeker traffic. So preventing one from becoming 80-90% of the market requires a strong number 2 and 3 and 4. So, I'm not worried about limiting competition myself unless it's number 1 buying 2, 3, and 4.
Interesting. Who else potentially gets hurt by consolidation?
I think we see it with legacy customers who were with a startup or a smaller company that gets bought by a bigger company, where they were used to just extremely white glove service, and that changes because the company's bigger and just doesn't provide that. So I think that's a risk for organizations. And back to Tim's point, I think from a buyer's perspective, consolidation would be welcome, because when we look at the smaller side of the tools inside of the HR tech stack, there's so many in certain pockets and so few in others, that the so many in the certain pockets, it's very confusing of the difference in value prop between companies 1 through 30 and 31 through 60.
I agree with that, and I agree back to John's point about the white glove service. Because if you're with a smaller company and you're moving along and you're getting things done, and all of a sudden a larger company purchases that smaller company, you chances are you're going to lose a lot of that. And with that is it's losing the service, but many times it's also losing the fast-paced innovation that you're used to. You're being able to work with product, one-on-one with product, and create new things. And now that the company has been purchased, you're in a bigger company and you're lost. And many times you were a big player to that small player, but now you're just another minnow in the pond.
Yeah, I definitely think that the trend in 2026 will be to try, particularly in the AI space, to acquire cutting edge tools in certain areas. John, I think, down funnel kinds of functions will be the primary target area. And unfortunately, when smaller, nimble companies who are at the cutting edge get acquired, their access to resources, their priority, their ability to focus on the work at hand gets diminished because they're part of larger systems. They have to fit in with even back-end functionality takes time and effort. So I do think that there is the potential for a diminution in creativity and innovation in the industry through consolidation. Doesn't have to happen, but I think it's a possibility that we need to recognize.
That's certainly the downside of combination or consolidation, is that putting two companies together could slow them both down. I tend to think about it on the positive side. What can you do together? Do 1 + 1 = 3, or how can you make that happen? But there are certainly lots of examples of the opposite, just both together slowing down together.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, positive or negative, about the pretty significant movement towards consolidation that we are seeing in the space? Where's it going to happen in 2026? John, you've suggested that it's going to be in those areas, perhaps away from sourcing, more towards candidate evaluation, candidate selection, even candidate onboarding. Any other thoughts where it might be?
Analytics, data, information, applicant information.
Okay.
Data is key, in my opinion.
Anywhere that staffing is being reduced, and tools can assist those people left.
Okay, well, this has really been an interesting discussion. I think we've come out with an optimistic view of the trend, but with certain caveats. You know, it has to be done well. It has to not diminish the benefits for which the acquisition was made. Don't buy a cutting edge company and then dull the edge, if you will. So we have, we've kicked this issue around ourselves. As you probably noticed, we've had a very active chat stream. So now I'd like to open the open mic session, if you will, for the program. If you'd like to come up on stage and offer a comment, please just indicate in the chat stream that you will, and our producer, the inimitable Stephen O'Donnell, will bring you up on stage. Take me off so that we can get you on stage and let you say your piece. This is not a Q&A. This is a chance for you to, as our thought leaders have, a chance for you to offer your views on this important issue. So anybody would like to come up on stage? Stephen, do we have anybody who's raising their hand at this point?
Not just yet, but can I ask something or put something to the panel while we're waiting to see if someone does that? I've heard the term defensive M&A used when referring to moves made to shore up market share and maybe block competitors. Are you seeing that same sentiment in the marketplace?
I think for I can speak personally, in the past when we've made a defensive M&A buy, it was the worst acquisition we did. And it was only because we thought it was going to go somewhere else and affect us negatively from a competitive standpoint. I think in the tech sector, when companies are buying add-ons that are filling a gap, I feel like in a way that's always a little defensive, that they're buying it because they either don't want it to go somewhere else or they're afraid they can't develop it on their own.
I can see that Jeff was keen to join, but is driving, so unfortunately we're not having the pleasure of Jeff Taylor on screen. Jeff Gampy does ask, though, as an independent recruiter going on 43 years, his biggest competitor is often AI and algorithms. In terms of the future for folks like him, offering judgment, relationships and market knowledge, how is the consolidation in the market going to affect people in his position?
I would love to speak to that from a recruiter perspective. I think the one thing AI and algorithms can't do is build relationships. And until we're at a spot where a candidate will respond to a robot, is that they can ask all the questions and be excited when a robot calls them about a job, I think you're safe. The other thing is, I think the transformation from a recruiter is turning much more from a sourcing type function and a process manager to a consultant and relationship builder. And so the AI is not going to be able to tell your hiring manager about soft skills. And I think that as a recruiter is something that's really important that you hone in on.
Certainly, I agree there. Sorry.
You go on, Stephen.
I was just going to say that AI has yet to establish itself in the role of a recruiter, pushing back on hiring managers who are looking for skills and talents that aren't available, and getting them to reconsider what they want and how much they're willing to pay for it.
Absolutely. I don't think it's not going to happen, though. I truly believe it's going to happen eventually. But I agree completely that it doesn't take the human out of it, and you need those personal relationships. I haven't been a headhunter, haven't had that title in 30 some years, probably closer to 40, but that many years. But still, I will, when someone calls to ask me for a job, I will still go through those same motions. And it's not something, many of it is soft skills. and it's culture, and it's making that perfect fit. And resource libraries are great, and they can do a lot to set the platform, but they can't finish the job. And I think, and John said this, I think that what it is making today's recruiters do is be much more powerful recruiters when they do it well, using the tools.
I'd like to add another perspective on that. You often hear the phrase that AI will enable recruiters to do what they do best. Now, the implication of that statement is that for many recruiters, not all to be sure, but for many, they haven't been able to do what they do best. They've been too busy with process and too busy meeting with hiring managers and trying to figure out what in the heck they need. So the reality is that the skills required to do what they do best may not have been flexed as much as they need to be well honed. So I would argue that bringing in an AI system also requires giving recruiters the opportunity to re-strengthen those skills of relationship building and intuiting the special attributes that a person has that goes beneath the hard skills that you can measure and evaluate. I think oftentimes recruiters have not had an opportunity to flex those muscles enough to keep them well toned. And you need to tend to that as much as you do to integrating the technology.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. And I think, people will talk with AI and robots, right? Like they're already doing that. We're seeing that. We're all doing it ourselves, I'm sure. But I think as we interact with them more and more, that human connection is going to be increasingly important. So as much as I've said AI over the course of this call, I think, also that networking and being a bit more in person and it's going to be increasingly important for people too. I was just reading the other day about people using dating apps to try to get jobs because that's how they've figured out how to network. And so, I think just being creative and leveraging your network is going to be increasingly important, and recruiters, can kind of help play a piece of that puzzle.
Okay,
sorry. Going forward, I think it's going to be an interesting balancing act that, those of us who have worked in automation, building products like programmatic or, algorithms that make use of data in different ways, like it's going to be a balancing act that we don't try to solve the problems that AI is creating with more AI that excludes humans from the factor. Like we do need some guardrails. We need human touch, and it's tempting to say, well, I can automate a fix for that automated issue, or I can apply AI to solve a problem that maybe didn't exist in the same way, but AI has caused. And so I think it's going to be really, really a challenging balancing act to solve it without adding more humans, because I know that's a business challenge that everybody's facing right now, but also without more automation that just makes it worse.
Well, of course, the introduction of talent technology, not in every case, but in many cases, is really an exercise in change management. The best way to use these tools is to first think about how to optimize the process by which you are going to accomplish the recruiting function, and then to apply technology in those spots where it can have the greatest impact. So consolidation in some respects could potentially mean more change management for the buyer, if you will, that the potential impact of what a solution provider offers to the employer is much more significant because it touches so many more functions in the funnel, and therefore the change management challenge for the buyer is significant, which would argue that part and parcel with consolidation should be more attention. Cynthia, I think you made this point, more attention to customer success and focusing on how these tools are best integrated, not just to the tech stack, but into the organization, its practices, its policies, its principles. and its culture ultimately. So consolidation, from a business perspective, I think is there's a lot of upside to that. There are some downsides, but overall, I think potentially an upside for our industry. But let's also recognize that consolidation brings its own set of challenges, both for the buyer and seller, but also for the customer who deals with the consolidated units. Any last comments from you all before we close out this session? Well, I want to thank all of you, Tim, Hilary, John, and Cindy, and all of you that have commented in the chat stream. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you'll come back next month where we're going to talk about recruitment advertising. The question there is, employers are increasingly using fractional employees, gig employees, AI, and automation to reduce full-time equivalent headcount. What does that mean for an industry that's built on recruitment advertising for full-time equivalent positions? Is that the apocalypse of recruitment advertising that pundits have been forecasting forever, or will it mean that there will be yet another evolution amongst the companies that provide recruitment advertising? So we'll tackle that topic next time. But for now, thank you very much for joining us at this session of TAtech Live. Come back again next month, and we'll see you then.